I was 4 years old when I learned how to become visible. Not in the classroom, not through my grades, not through social media, but on the soccer field. I remember the grass. I remember the chaos of kids running anywhere and everywhere. I remember the kids picking flowers in the corner. I remember not really understanding anything about what was going on or any strategy, but the one thing I do remember is scoring and that feeling of excitement and adrenaline and energy. And honestly, that shifted something for me. I didn't look at the net. I didn't look for my teammates. I didn't look at the ball. I looked directly for my dad. And I scanned, where was he? Did he see it? Did it make him happy? Is he smiling? And when I saw his smile, that excitement, something inside me really decided to lock in. I felt like I mattered. My dad has always been my biggest supporter, and he was also my coach for a very long time. So when I scored, it felt like I had succeeded in two worlds at the same time. I was a good player, and I was a good son. And when he wasn't there watching me throughout the course of my career, it still felt great, but it was never quite the same. There, that's when I learned the equation that performance equals visibility and visibility equals value. Therefore, performance equals value. And I've been wrestling with that equation ever since, throughout my whole life, from the time I was 4 years old and first figured that out, even though I didn't realize what was actually going on. Because if performance creates value, what happens if performance disappears? Does the value disappear? So I want you to ask yourself something uncomfortable right now. If everything you're good at vanished tomorrow, who would you be? If your talent was taken away, what still remains? I never wanted to be average, and I needed to find that clearly. When I say average, I don't mean lazy, I mean replaceable. In sports, replaceable means you could be subbed out, benched, cut, or forgotten. You go from starter to the depth chart, from important to optional, and that's something that no athlete likes to experience, but every athlete understands where that's coming from. And that feeling honestly and truly terrified me growing up because invisibility felt like irrelevance, and irrelevance felt like powerlessness. How can you lead if nobody sees you? How can you make an impact if nobody notices what you're doing? I didn't want to just be good, I wanted to be undeniable. And I've had to ask myself recently, am I chasing excellence or am I running from being unseen? Those are two very different motivations, and one is rooted in growth, and the other is rooted fully out of fear. And if I'm being honest, there's been fear in my motivation a lot. Fear of being average, fear of blending in, fear of just being another kid. I don't believe God creates average people. I don't believe any human being is born ordinary. But I do believe we can live average if we stop stepping and working on what God has given us. So I built my whole entire life around that work. Outwork everyone, outlast everyone, and outperform everyone. But that still leaves the question, if you strip away the outer performance, what remains? There was a role that I gave myself and was kind of given to me for a very long time, and I still have this role, and I'm going to have it till the day I die. And as the oldest brother, I gave myself a job. No one really said this is what you need to do, or no one actually assigned it to me, but I decided for myself that I needed to be the strongest, I needed to be the most capable, and I needed to set the tone for my three younger brothers. And when you're the oldest, at least for me, I internalized this belief through everything that I've done and everything that I still do. If I struggle, then my parents worry and my little brothers worry. If I fail, then everyone in the family feels it. So I built strength, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally as well. When I failed as a kid, I didn't show it. I didn't break publicly. I got quiet, I got angry, and I just trained a little bit harder so that the next time it wouldn't happen again. And when I won, it wasn't just a feeling or sense of pride. It was almost like a relief that I was still enough, that I was doing my job, a relief that I had not slipped, and a relief that I was still someone that people could look up to. And for me, relief is power, because if winning feels like a safety, then losing feels like exposure, and exposure feels very dangerous. From a very early age, soccer became more than a sport to me. It became a pathway, a vehicle, and it was an exit strategy. I grew up in a small town, and I didn't just want to win the games. I wanted to prove that I wasn't stuck. I wanted to prove that I could break the cycle, the small town cycle, and I wanted to prove that environment didn't define my whole destiny. And somewhere along the way, I attached myself to that identity. So if tomorrow my body gave out and said, "You're done," my first reaction would not be calm acceptance. I would be pissed. I would be angry because I would feel like I didn't finish the story that I started writing when I was 4 years old. I believe that I could have been more, maybe a higher level, maybe I could have gone pro, maybe a bigger stage. And without that, who am I? Who am I without soccer? If I'm not introduced as an athlete, what are people going to introduce me as? What scares me most isn't losing the game, it's losing my own relevance. Being known, being respected, being needed. Worst case, being replaceable, being average, and just being another person out there. But here's the tension. When I imagine soccer ending, I also have found that I feel a release for myself. A relief from the injury cycle, relief from constantly proving, and a relief from carrying the athlete only identity, which has kind of told me something important about myself as I've been building this out. And it's that soccer has been both my sword and my shield. And I've had to ask myself, what has it really been shielding me from? And here's the hardest part to admit. I I don't sit still very good. I always need to be doing something, whether it's playing games or planning something out or working on a business plan or making a podcast episode or writing. But when I'm injured and I can't train, I also don't rest peacefully either. I pivot. I try to focus on business. I try to focus on podcasts. I try to focus on the gym. And I try to focus on anything and everything besides the injury because stillness to me feels dangerous. When I'm moving, I feel like I'm progressing. I feel powerful. And when I'm producing things, I feel valuable. And when I'm grinding and putting in the work, I feel worthy. And there have been nights after injuries where I sat there thinking, if I can't perform, who am I? And as I've been going through this, there was one specific night. It was late. I had a soccer game at probably 10:30. I had taken my now wife, then she was my girlfriend with me, and it was one of my first games back from a series of pretty extensive injuries that had kept me out for a while. And I went and I played the whole game and I played fine. It wasn't anything that I was really proud of, but we did good and we played well. And after the game, I talked to my friends, got done, then I got in the car with my girlfriend and I couldn't take it. I broke down and I cried and I bawled and I was angry and I remember hitting the steering wheel and I remember not being able to talk because I was so angry with what was going on. And my knee was throbbing and it wasn't that it was just sore and it wasn't just that it was fatigued. It was that kind of deep ache and injury and feeling that it makes you question everything about the future. And the thought hit me in that moment, what if this is it? What if this is the beginning to the end? And in that moment, it wasn't just about me losing soccer. It was losing the version of myself that felt important because of soccer. Because soccer felt like it was saving me. It felt like it was saving me from being stuck, saving me from being average, and saving me from being invisible. And that night, I was able to play, but I didn't feel motivated. I didn't feel resilient. And honestly, I just felt lost. Lost because the thing that I thought was my foundation suddenly felt really fragile. Lost because I realized I had built so much of my identity on one thing that could be taken away from me in an instant. And even though I was technically still playing, I felt completely alone because I couldn't tell if I loved the game or if it had turned into a sense of survival. And that realization didn't end in inspiration, it ended in silence, and it ended in me not knowing who I was without it. And honestly, that night forced a question that I had avoided for many, many years. If my body can be taken away, if my talent can be taken away, if my vehicle can be taken away, what remains? And sometimes I ask myself, is my discipline coming from strength or is it coming from fear? Fear of being irrelevant, fear of disappointing my dad, fear of proving that I was just another kid who talked big and never became what he thought he would be. And I hate that thought. It makes me super uncomfortable because I talk about identity, I talk about high standards, but part of me is still that 4 year old looking at the sideline, checking to see if I'm enough to everybody else. So, to answer that question, if you were to strip it all away, no soccer, no business, no applause, and no introduction, what remains? I work hard, I fight, I don't quit, and no matter what happens, I'm always going to get back up. That's not talent, that's character, and that's identity. And when everything is stripped away, one thing over everything else is that I'm a son of God. Not because I scored a goal, not because I built something fun, but because that's who I am and that's how I was when I first came to this world. And the real battle is learning to live like that is already enough. So let me ask you this again. If your talent disappeared tomorrow, who are you? If no one clapped, would you still show up every day? If your title vanished, what word would you still describe yourself? Is it disciplined? Is it faithful? Is it resilient? Is it consistent? One common factor in all of those words is identity. Those aren't performance words. Ask yourself what part of identity is built on performance. Identify what remains when the applause disappears and move from standards, not applause. Trial is a part of this journey, and especially if it comes down to something that you just can't do anymore, if you shift instead of quit, then you're not giving up and you're still fighting and you're still building that identity one day at a time, one step at a time, one rep at a time. It's just like in the gym. When I go to the gym, I'm not going to go throw on 350 pounds on the bench and be able to rep it out. I'm just not. That's not how I'm built, but I want to work towards that. So when I go in, I'm going to put a weight on that is very uncomfortable for me and that I might only be able to rep out a few times. But if I do the small things every day and build on it and build on it and build on it, I'm going to see the progress. And it's the same thing in every step, every walk of life. If you have an end goal, then build your identity around who you would be if you had nothing and use that identity to work towards your goals. Goals shouldn't build your identity. Identity should build your goals. Move in a way that 4 year old you would be proud of, whether it's doing exactly what 4 year old you wanted to do or what 40-year-old you now wants to do, do it in a way that 4-year-old you can be proud. Train because that's who you are. Lead because that's who you are. Work because that's who you are, not because someone else is watching. You don't lose yourself when you lose the talent. You lose yourself when you never built anything deeper than the talent itself. The world doesn't need the perfect you, it needs the real you still fighting.